Good morning, everyone. I'm Regina Donaldson, the head of Central Utilities, as well as the site energy manager. I'm also responsible for biotech on the Ecological Footprint Steering Committee, a part of the Pharma Division. So at Bayer, we consider and expect that everyone has a hand in responsibility, individually as well as collectively as a team. And so as an individual, we look at everything that we do to make sure that we are being very responsible, whether it's water use, energy use in our administration buildings, in our facilities, such as production and manufacturing, as well as being responsible with our business travel to make sure that we have consideration of the different modes. If we're able to use virtual technology, we try to use that as well to be similarly effective. For the sake of this conference, I'll focus on climate. So we do focus on scope 1, 2, and 3, in which scope 1 for pharma, we have a 42% reduction based upon our 2019 baseline. 10% directly from production, as well as 32% for renewable and clean energy. That is the responsibility of our procurement department to secure as time goes on between now and by 2030. We also look at our supply chain from end to end through raw materials, through different service providers, through different types of other technologies that's provided by others, as well as business travel, as mentioned before, how it's incorporated throughout the process. Similar to other companies, we do look at end-to-end because eventually everything that we put into our products, not only it impacts, say, our patients that we provide, but also we want to be responsible of how we are to our environment. So Bayer standards, as well as other standards, are very important to ensure that we incorporate and consider in everything that we do. So what I have on the screen here is firstly around the electricity. So we do standardize and spell out not only for our engineering department, but also for procurement to make sure that each time a contract is either renewed or a new provider is considered, we make sure that they have clean energy mixes that show over time that it increases to 100% renewable. Also with our buildings, we have new facilities that are coming up to where we're expanding. We want to incorporate some of the sustainability responsibilities, such as having gender-neutral restrooms. And so many people, I would say at the beginning, were very resistant with gender-neutral, but it does have a benefit to where you synergize the different types of plumbing where you don't have individual restrooms, so that is saving water. We also consider using centralized systems for our utilities instead of having standalone. Also newer technologies such as heat pumps, where we're not using fossil fuels, but also internal type of technologies that incorporate, say, heating and cooling capacities for different processes as well as comfort cooling. Ecological sustainability check. So throughout different project management, CapEx projects, operating expenses projects, we make sure we have ecological assessment. It goes through what type of water requirements. Are we able to utilize what we have in place? Look at the different processes such as waste management. Does this new type of material or this new type of process or product, does it generate more waste than what we would like to have? Or does it also provide an opportunity to leverage what we already have in order so that we can continue our recycling, our composting types of programs? And lastly, sustainable monitoring. So we also have, as mentioned with KITE, we have different types of key metrics, key indicators. We do check-ins not only at the site level, we also check in at the global level to make sure that we are continuously aligned in whatever our goals that we have set can be on track to achieve. Not only from, say, an engineering and facility standpoint, but our procurement department also is our advocate to make sure that the different contracts and the suppliers only also align with the sustainability development goals. So this can be anti-corruption, making sure labor is adequate and fair to people. Also, are our suppliers using their utilities or their resources responsible? We want to make sure that health and safety is considered for not only the customers that we supply to, but also are our suppliers being fair to their workers and to their customers and suppliers. So it is a domino effect. So not only that we expect to be responsible in a sustainable manner, but we also hold others accountable in the dealings, the business dealings that we work with. When it comes to, say, natural resources, again, we want to make sure that others are preserving and using them in an economical way. We want to make sure that practices are aligned, such as maintenance, refurbishment, recycling. Everything that we see and know that is responsible, we want to make sure others are doing as well. So for example, with transportation, so we have where different companies that we deal with use air travel. And so we look at, okay, are there opportunities to utilize companies that use, say, renewable fuel, jet fuel? I know heard about United uses that type of technology. Or do we consolidate or have our suppliers consolidate shipment to make sure that we're not using more than what we have to use? We have different key expectations that align with the greenhouse gases expectation as well as good practices. For example, energy management that is standardized by ISO. Different facilities are ISO standard aligned, and we have a few facilities within Bayer as well. So regarding scope 1 and 2, as mentioned, we have 10% direct reduction with this scope 1. And so what are we doing? We're leveraging what do we already have in place to get an understanding. We have annually a reporting system that demonstrates, okay, this site used this type of fossil fuel or clean energy. We want to look at also scope 2. How are we making progress to increase our renewable energy contracts? And then we also leverage other areas, for example, our health, safety, and environmental department. They look at what are the standards and the regulation requirement and how can we achieve even better. And this can also include upgrading different, say, boilers. So we use steam boilers for different processes, but it uses natural gas. And so we know natural gas is not a clean energy, but we look for opportunities to divert from that. For example, instead of using natural gas powered boilers, we are using now electric steam generated boilers, which uses more clean and renewable energy that we have in place with our supplier to make sure that they provide those key mixes for us to meet our targets. So our master plan reduction for CO2 is broken down by efficiency, decarbonization, as well as renewable energy credits. So efficiency, we look at ways to optimize our different processes. How do we ensure that we track, for example, PSS, which means product supply system. It covers different categories, for example, cost, quality, safety, but also we incorporate sustainability to make sure that people are having conversations to look at ways to reduce, say, their energy use, to reduce their dependency on unclean energy, but have conversations to include others that we would normally consider. For example, engineers, people think that they always come up with the solution, but we also look at our front line. The front line are key to knowing what's going on, and so they have different ideas that are very beneficial. And so we depend on them and want to include them so that if they have an idea, something that's feasible, and sometimes cost may be a challenge, but we try to be creative in order to make things happen to realize. Also decarbonation. So I mentioned about reducing fossil fuel dependency. Also, I hear about a lot of solar panels, battery storage, very great. We use diesel for emergency power backup, and we make sure that our systems comply with the local regulations. It's something that we are, say, trying to balance regarding making sure that we have electrical power backup for critical systems, critical processes in order that we do not disrupt our production, but we also want to be responsible within our community in our regional areas. And lastly, renewable energy credits. So we invest in a lot of energy credits or carbon offsets, not to take credit for what we're doing to directly reduce, which we are making sure we achieve those targets, but we're also taking that and investing into other areas that create clean, renewable energy to supply to those communities as well as to Bayer. Not only from a commercial production or manufacturing standpoint, or from a supplier standpoint, but we also are looking upstream in our research and development so that downstream we don't have to reconfigure the processes, spend additional capital funds, but to have those that are working in the research and development areas look at not only what type of new technologies or medicines or other types of solutions that they're developing, but also consider how can you be responsible throughout the process of research and development. And how do we ensure that at different phases? And what we have on the screen is, I would say, a typical pharmaceutical consumer health type of process. We have different check-ins to make sure that although we've moved from one to the next, that we are ensuring that we maintain a sustainable mindset. And then if not, we reset and go back and challenge one another to see if it's a better way to do it differently without compromising the quality. It's great to have a roadmap, but we should do periodic check-in. We set a baseline, but as we go on, as we progress, we want to make sure that we are reaching our targets. Currently, we have carbon neutrality by 2030 and net zero by 2050. We are already stretching for our carbon neutrality to where they even increase the goals. Sometimes it's a little challenging because you're changing the target, but we know that the more we stretch ourselves, the more that we are contributing to a more sustainable environment. We're being a responsible employer. We're being a responsible neighbor and community member. So a few examples of sustainable energy systems, PV systems. So we have a new PV system that was just launched in Beijing on Earth Day of this year on top of one of their buildings. This facility is actually in an industrial area. It's for pharmaceuticals, and they utilize the PPA, which is Power Purchase Agreement. This is a new concept that Bayer is considering or implementing. Is not putting in capital investment up front, but using the PPA to have a long-term commitment to renewable clean sources. For this particular example, about 1 million watts of power will be generated on an annual basis, which reduces a 9% carbon output on an annual basis. This is something, and I can say, being at that particular facility, it is very smoggy. And so we don't want to do anything that increases the challenges when it comes to the environment. Next is geothermal. This is a new technology for myself. I would say it was different categories or options that were considered. For this particular example, a groundwater heat pump was installed, and the concept is to use groundwater And so to do the exchange between hot and cold type of technology. In Berkeley, California, we don't have that, I would say, option to do. We would like to do it. We would like to explore a little further. But this is something that is new for the company, and we see that it is working. So it's an encouragement that we can come up with different creative solutions. Next are heat pumps. So we have a new cell culture technology center that was just launched last month, and we utilize heat pumps. This is also a new technology for ourselves. This reduced about 47% compared to the baseline of a traditional system, which would have required additional cooling tower installation, additional package units for chilled water, construction, with piping, a lot of, say, disturbances with the environment. New technology, we cut the price by $5 million. So just because we have a new technology or investment, it doesn't always equate to being more expensive. Something that was shocking to us. Also, we reduced the project execution timeline by 16 weeks. So we were able to get the facility, at least from a utility standpoint, ahead of the schedule. Lastly, combining different types of technologies to achieve a higher efficiency. So this is something that really exciting for me, using a combination between heat pumps as well as solar panels. And this is, if you have the footprint, open field footprint, it is very fantastic to install. So high level concept is that you have solar panels that are curved facing different directions, east and west. And depending on how the sun rises, it hits the solar panels and generate electricity. And when you have battery storage, you can collect. So throughout the day, you're able to absorb as much energy as you can so that you can feed into your operations. And then at night, you can also feed and reduce the dependency on fossil fuel generated electricity. So some closing thoughts. It's great to have standards so that all can align to ensure implementation, expected implementation, to be responsible. And then also there's all types of options to have different types of clean or sustainable systems. Open your mind. I think someone mentioned earlier with the architectural presentation. If we have a closed mind, we can't make an impact. If you have an open mind, you just never know what could happen, what options you have that you can be impactful. And then also, it may not be as expensive as you would have thought, but just going through the process and evaluate. Thanks.